which I now know is 2011. So the idea would be that during 2011, now there's two factors we have to keep track of here regarding 2011. First of all, we go into day 7 of the galactic underworld, November 3rd, 2010. So it's important now that we're coming up to this time to realize that day 7 occurs first, and then 3 months after that, during February 2011, we get another time acceleration called the universal underworld. So the day 7 achievement of the galactic underworld seems to suggest, like, I think the whole galactic underworld has been about the development of technology, and it's been about people connecting with each other at a technological level, which is gradually is destroying the structures of the planetary and the national underworld. That's what I would say the galactic underworld has been about. So the idea would be that when day 7 arrives, then what happens is we come to the final achievement, the final creation of day 7. And so, Henry, doesn't it feel like some kind of incredible connective fusion happening at that point as day 7 comes in? Like people are so fascinated with this latest Apple product. What's it called? The iPod or whatever.
iPad or whatever, yeah.
iPad, yeah. Well, a lot of people I don't have one because I don't do much technology, but a lot of people are telling me that there's all kinds of chips in there that access galactic locations and stuff like that. So I have a feeling something's going on technologically where a fusion is going to happen when we go into day 7. And then assuming that there's some kind of fusion, what would that mean? Well, it would mean that the connective power of the 4th dimension will start dominating over this dualistic black-white global elite control pattern. You see that?
Yeah.
And people won't necessarily understand what's going on, but I think what they will suddenly find themselves doing is they'll suddenly find themselves seeing both sides of the coin. Now, for example, the United States is the biggest terrorist and the greatest producer and user of weapons of mass destruction on the planet. And yet, the United States has made it look like they're the good guys, and everybody else on the planet are all the terrorists. You get my drift?
Sure.
Well, all of a sudden, I think that kind of mentality just won't work anymore. Imagine if suddenly Americans woke up and saw how this game is really being played. So I think it's going to be just a massive opening of consciousness where people are going to see both sides of the coin, and then they're going to start to go into super connection. And then the Pleiadian said, remember, they said at the end of the Mayan calendar is when all 9 dimensions would open. So then it would look to me like when the universal underworld time acceleration starts in February, then all of a sudden all 9 dimensions are going to open up, blammo. Now what would that be like? Well, what happens is, remember divine consciousness in the 8th dimension?
Yeah.
Which we can call God if we want to.
Right.
That's okay. And then remember geometry in the 6th dimension, the world of forms and really high ideals. Well, higher consciousness and getting in touch with the divine mind and all that kind of stuff exists in those dimensions, and it's not in the 4th dimension. Now, the 4th dimension is where all the world religions are. So what happens for people, and still is happening at this current moment, remember I said early on in the program that the upper 5 dimensions come through the 4th dimension, because the 4th dimension for us is the dimension of intuition and feeling. And so I think what's going to happen during the universal underworld is all of a sudden, instead of getting your divine consciousness connection through the 4th dimension and then having it turn into one of the world religions, all of a sudden it becomes direct. And this was one of the teachings of the Gnostics. The religion that got dumped 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago was Gnosticism, which was a form of Christianity. And Gnosticism is a very simple thing. It just says you can have a direct connection if you want it, and you don't have to go through any religion or any priest.
Right.
So the idea here would be that those 9 dimensions are going to blast open the minute the universal underworld is going to come, and it's going to like really just straighten out the way people tune in to all of these realities, is the way I'd put it.
So in some way also, that to me that means that currently there is a kind of a bottleneck, or something is withholding this from already happening. And what is that force? Is it just a cosmic alignment? Is it physical? Is it non-physical? Is it out there? Is it in us? What is it?
Well, this is where I am so grateful to Carl Kalaman. And he was one of the few male scientists that I connected with who was willing to actually talk to me. Carl Kalaman is the one who has the answer to your question. And and also the only way you can answer that question, in other words, like, what is it that's holding us in a certain field right now?
Yeah.
I think is what you're asking, which is me, and we're not going to that other level I talked about. Well, the way to figure it out is to study time acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you do that is really simple, is you go back through the previous underworlds to see what was going on at this moment in time. Now we're in the middle of the night 6 of the galactic underworld. And the midpoint of night 6 was right around May 6th, so we've just gotten past the halfway point of night 6. So what you do is you just go back to the midpoint of night 6 of the planetary and national, and in this case, regional underworld. That's the 100,000-year underworld. And in a moment, you'll see what I mean, because the regional underworld has got the big answer for your question. So if we go back in the planetary underworld, it's 1982-83, and I'm not going to waste any time on it. There's not much going on there. If we go back to the midpoint of the national underworld, night 6, we get 1425 A.D., and we're right smack dab in the middle of the Inquisition.
Right.
And smack dab in the middle of the Catholic Church taking rigid control of the mentality of Western consciousness, and anybody who doesn't agree gets burned at the stake, and so everybody behaves. And so it's very important to understand that we're resonating deeply with inquisitional consciousness right now. Ratzinger, I won't even call this Pope Benedict because it's an insult to the name. His name is Ratzinger. And Ratzinger ran the Inquisition in the church for 20 years before he became Pope. So when I saw Ratzinger getting caught, and he is getting caught, you can see that resonation with the Inquisition. But the really big resonation that we're dealing with now is the regional. And in order to put that into context, what I'm actually saying is since 1999, which is the beginning of the galactic underworld, we've been processing the planetary industrial themes, and we've been processing the national underworld, civilization, theocratic consciousness. And we've been processing it so much that we seem to be now penetrating the regional mind. And this is a big deal because the regional mind represents Paleolithic consciousness, it represents Neanderthal consciousness, it represents the consciousness of Eden, it represents a very, very what's the right word for it? It's a time of oneness on the planet, because until the national underworld started, we were much more unified with the planetary field.
The bicameral mind kind of idea a little bit.
Pardon?
Maybe the bicameral mind idea, if you heard about that, Julian Jaynes, etc.
That's actually true. I love the bicameral mind because he tried to make it look like it was a bad thing, and if you read the book right, it's a great thing, because that is an access to the regional mind. So then